Ever wanted to invest in a franchise that Konami could never figure out what to do with? The Knightmare might be for you. From a vertical shooter to an action platformer to a point and click, these games, believe it or not, create a franchise, one of Konami's firsts. But is it worth it? Stick around and I'll tell you. My name is Fortefyre, and welcome to Series Slayer. My Konami conquest was fun. I can honestly say I loved every second of it. Seeing how the company evolved throughout time is just one of those things that bring me joy. But there were tons of games that didn't bring me joy. In fact, from 1978 all the way to 1985, there were some grade A stinkers, the sole exceptions being Gradius, Track and Field, and some of the games in the Konami Sports franchise. Then I hit Knightmare, the franchise we're talking about today. Now before we begin, I do want to say that I have played all of these games, and as such there might be slight spoilers solely isolated to the story. If that bothers you, then you might want to avoid this episode until you get a chance to play all the games in this franchise. But if you don't mind, then let's get started. Knightmare was released on the MSX home computer in 1986, and as with most games on the MSX, this one is expensive as hell. I learned the hard way that older computer software ages like fine wine when it comes to price, and moldy cheese when it comes to graphics. And I'll be honest with you, I emulated all of these games because we were burning through all of the Konami games so fast, I couldn't buy them quick enough. Knightmare 1 though, incredible game. It's a vertical shooter, which if you've ever watched my videos, you know I'm all about my vertical shooters, always have been, always will. We control Papillon, who is fighting all of these evils that come his way to save Aphrodite from the evil Hudnos. Through and through, this game is a vertical shooter. There's really not much more to say. There are power-ups, many of which are hidden in question blocks, and there's also some parts of the game where we'll need to shoot the bricks to create a bridge. And that can cause some issues if you aren't expecting it. It is an auto-scroller after all, so there were some occasions where I found myself being forced into the river, thus losing a life. All in all, this is a wonderful game, and if there ever was an MSX game you should play, it would be this one. The second game is Knightmare 2: The Maze of Gallius, which is an action platformer and a sequel to the original. We play as Papillon and his wife Aphrodite, who are going to save the soul of their unborn fetus, Pamperses. The evil wizard Gallius, being the power fuck that he is, decides to break into heaven, steal the baby's soul, and lock it in his shitty maze. Hence the name, The Maze of Gallius. Now before I start ripping this to shreds, many people consider this one of the best MSX games out there, so I promise you I'm not trying to ruin your day, but this one wasn't for me for a few reasons. I don't mind that Papillon and Aphrodite have different abilities, and I don't mind that I have to explore, but I mind weird maps. It's a big reason why I don't like Metroidvanias. They just kind of slog on with the where do I go factor. This game is so rudimentary that you would have to draw a map, and while I'm really decent at drawing maps for dungeon crawlers, I'm straight dog shit at doing it for platformers. Also, the items in this game are off the wall. We find a dagger, which you would think would be a weapon. No. We equip the dagger, type umbrella on the keyboard, and the bats that are in the room die. It's helpful, I guess. And speaking of death, God forbid you die. If you die, you have to control the other member, bring them to the Grim Reaper, death, but only once, and only after you found salt, 100 arrows, 20 keys, and 100 coins. Welcome to the maze. The controls aren't the greatest, the visuals aren't the greatest. Like I said, this game it really wasn't for me, but luckily, it was released on the Famicom. On the Famicom, it is known as Maja Densetsu 2, Daimashikyo Gallius, or Demon Castle Legend 2, The Maze of Gallius. Now, the Famicom version virtually plays the same, but it looks better and it controls better logically. There are only 5 dungeons as opposed to 10, but they beefed up the size of the smaller dungeons and redesigned the layout of the entire maze. So guess what? Imagine me spending 5 hours on the MSX version to have to relearn the entire game. It wasn't the most fun, but I appreciate the smaller quality of life improvements that the NES version had to offer. It took me about 5 days to beat, and honestly, if it's for you, it's for you. The final game of the trilogy was Shalom, Knightmare 3 on the MSX. Just as a reminder, Knightmare 1 was a vertical shooter Knightmare 2 was an action platformer Metroidvania game, so what possibly could 3 be? A point-and-click adventure. But not just any point-and-click adventure, no. A game so obtuse that even I would lose interest in it after 3 hours. The game starts off weird. Your girlfriend pops up and mentions that she has Konami's new game, Shalom. We pop it in, and then we get sucked into the virtual world of the Greek, led by King Pompous. Oh yeah, forgot to mention, that unborn baby soul, when we rescue it, it becomes a living baby, and King Pompous is that baby. King Pompous tells us about how we're the heroes destined to destroy Gog, this ancient evil, and if we don't, we can't go home. So cool, fuck me, I guess. How do we do that? Well, we have to talk to everyone for even a sniff of a hint. And because this game has compounding conversational branches, you have to do things in a very specific order that changes between NPC to NPC. Some of them, when you walk up to them, they're distracted, so we have to take the object in their hand, apologize, talk to them again, look at them, talk to them again. It's so fucking infuriating. I wish I could tell you more about this game, but I didn't make it that far. I maybe toddled my slow ass around 40 transition screens before I read the writing on the wall that this wasn't the game for me, and I fucked it off. But hey, it might be for you. Some people say this game is incredibly innovative, but I'm sorry, I don't think it is. I think it's lazy, and it's a perfect example of what 1987 Konami was. A time where storylines went out the window, and they released some relatively rough games. For anyone who watched me do The Conquest, they'll be the first to tell you, 1987 Konami is a fiend. Only about 5 of the 20 games released that year were memorable, some of which included Blades of Steel, Esper Dream, Metal Gear, and MX-5000. So that begs the question, is the franchise worth it? Yes and no. Yes, if you're an MSX purist and you want to see what's available on it. No, if you're a practical gamer that doesn't want to invest a lot of time into what-ifs, because 66% of the franchise is exactly that. I love Knightmare 1, I think it's a dope game, but the last 2, they kind of went downhill for me. But that's it for today. Have you ever messed with any of the Knightmare games? If so, feel free to tell me how stupid I am, because I do respond to every single comment, even the mean ones. And if you made it to the end of the spin-off episode where I ramble incoherently about games that chafe me in my naughty bits, then you're home in our community. We're a group of gaming enthusiasts that simply enjoy remembering when life was a little bit easier to live, and we're on our way to 8,000 subscribers. Finally, the single most important thing you can do for me is to hit that thumbs up button, as it directly impacts the visibility of the videos and the projects that I work on every single day. As always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes, Fortefyre out.